and turning it into action. This is so important for us as support groups, and I really am so appreciative of the fact that Anri is here to speak to us. She is an owner and director at Confida Pty Limited, and she has so much knowledge that she has allowed us to tap into it and just share it with all of us. So, Anri, go ahead. And I forgot to say, if anyone has any questions, on the left-hand side of your screen, there's a little thing that says chat. So if you have any questions, you can pop them into there and we'll answer them live. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you very much for the introduction. I'm just checking. Would it be okay then if we keep the questions to the end, and then we can just go back onto the chat, and then we can check what's happening on there.
That's perfect.
So, okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Anri Winter, and as mentioned, I run and operate a company secretarial practice based in Midrand, and we do provide services relating to meeting management and administration of meetings to several large companies in South Africa, including some of the banks. And yes, I'm just so excited to chat to you today about minutes and meetings. So yes, if we can get started, let me just see if I can share my screen here.
Can you see the little thing at the bottom next to, so there's the microphone and then the video camera, and then next to that it says share screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me just see. So is there, can you see?
Yes, there we go.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me just put it into. So in addressing the topic for today, collating feedback and turning it into action, I really wanted to just stop at two elements of it, and the first one is the effective meeting management, and then also the administration side of it, and we'll touch on this slide often as we go through it. Especially in these times that are so uncertain today, it is so important for us to meet and, stay in touch with each other, and, especially working from home, we want to collaborate as much as we can. And a study that was done by the Harvard School of Business last year, it shows that compared to pre-lockdown levels, people do attend 13% more meetings. So if you feel like you are in meetings all day long, this has been validated by the Harvard Business School. We do attend more meetings, but then while the duration of the meetings are typically a little bit shorter, about 20%, the number of people that are invited to these meetings are actually more. So we do spend a lot more time in meetings these days. So I do know a lot of people that are actually overloaded by meetings at the moment. Someone said to me the other day, we can work or we can meet, which is so ironic, because we meet because we need to work, but people don't see it these days. I mean, my husband, he tells me all the time, I've been in meetings all day and I haven't even had time to work. So, we do spend a lot of time in meetings, and it is important that if we do meet, that we make sure that we, look at it from a strategic and from a people's perspective, and that we do it well. Meetings do need to be conducted purposefully and efficiently. So,
sorry, Anri, can I just interrupt you? I can just see the your main header page. It's showing like on PowerPoint itself. It's not showing the full screen of your.
So how can I
don't know if it was when you chose to share screen, if you had to.
So I can stop share and try it again. Let me see.
Sorry, I just didn't want you to keep speaking ahead and then we miss your beautiful slides.
No, that's fine. Let me stop sharing and then let's see if we can try it again.
Maybe if you put the PowerPoint onto full screen and then go in and choose that as your screen to share. That makes sense?
Okay, let's see.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, so yes, the reality that we live in today is that you can actually skip work by just muting your mic. That's how many meetings we attend at the moment. So if we just go back to the slide, looking at effective meeting management and then also the administration side, from the meeting management side, I want to really touch on a couple of aspects that you can look at to make sure that you run effective meetings. Ensuring that we have the right people in the meeting, making sure that we put enough planning into the meeting so that we can really come up with a good focused agenda. Empowering your participants to really come to the table and provide meaningful feedback, setting some ground rules for your meeting, and also some tips and techniques that we can look at in the meeting itself. So if we just look at choosing the right people for your meeting, and this really depends on what you want to accomplish with your meeting, always make sure that the decision makers are in the meeting. It doesn't help that you have a meeting, but the people that really can make decisions and need to approve things aren't there, then we're just wasting each other's time. Avoid inviting too many people. So as we said, the Harvard Business School said that 14% more people are being invited to meetings, and that just means that sometimes we are inviting people that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So think carefully about who you invite. The less people there are in there, people don't feel like they can hide behind other people, and they can really come to the table and provide meaningful input. Consider giving a call to your participants and really explaining to them why you need them in the meeting, why they are important to the meeting, and then always follow up that call with calendar invites, and a notice of the meeting, setting out the purpose of the meeting. Consider also including who are some of the other participants in the meeting. And also who the meeting organizer is, so that if there are some questions, people can, they know who to contact and who they can speak to. Make sure that you also include the agenda and then also any relevant reading material. So just to highlight there, I said relevant reading material, and it's so important to make sure that you don't bombard your participants with a lot of reading material that will take hours and hours to read through. Make it short, make it succinct, and so that your participants can also get through the reading material in a good time. If we're looking at planning for your meeting and setting your agenda, I think it goes without saying to say that if you want a really focused meeting, you need to have a focused agenda. So make sure that you align to your overall purpose and the desired outcome of the meeting. Always list the items that you want to discuss, and next to each item, really think about what it is that you want the participants to do. Is it a document that they just need to note, or would they need to actually provide comments and review the documents in the meeting? Or is it a memo that is tabled for approval? Mention these actions on your agenda item itself, so that your participants also know what it is expected from them in the meeting. It is very important to make sure that you prioritize your items and list the most important items first. Sometimes a meeting can carry on a little bit longer than is anticipated, and then it's always important to make sure that you address your important items first, so that the less important items can then just be deferred to a next meeting if that is necessary. In your agenda itself, it's always easy to put time estimates. If you think an item would take 10 minutes, or if you present a speaker with 30 minutes to address the participants, put it on the agenda so that everyone also knows how long they have, and then it's clear for everyone if they need to ask questions, what the time limits are. It is important to ensure that your agendas are consistent from meeting to meeting. When you start with developing your agenda, go back to your previous meeting's agenda and make sure that they all follow the same template. Also, go back to your previous minutes and action items and make sure that your agenda addresses those items that specifically were highlighted as action items in the previous meeting. Obtain input from key participants on the agenda, and if it's a finance related meeting, the CFO should really look at the agenda before it gets sent out and provide input into it. It's also very important that the chairperson reviews the agenda before it goes out so that he can also commit to the agenda and the meeting that he will be leading. Be flexible when you develop your agenda. If you've always had a meeting and it's 2 hours long, why not think about scheduling a 45-minute meeting or a 30-minute meeting? Respect each other's time and don't put things unnecessary onto the agenda. If you consider the items on your agenda, also think about whether this information can actually be shared via email. And if it can, then do it. It would save so much time. So be flexible and also respect the other participants' time by keeping it as short and sweet as possible. So empowering your participants, it's very important to distribute the relevant reading material in advance to your participants. Then they have a chance to go through the material and come prepared to the meeting to provide valuable input and feedback. As I mentioned earlier, make sure that the reading material that you do send out are brief and to the point. And it's also good practice to distribute the meeting packs a few days in advance, 3 days, 4 days, a week, if possible, to give the guys enough time to really go through the meeting pack and the documents. Everyone is busy. Everyone has got a lot of balls in the air. It's really unfair to send out these reading material the night before a meeting and then expect people to come prepared. So, once again, it comes down to planning. Plan properly and make sure that you can send out your reading material well in advance of the meeting actually taking place. So looking at setting some ground rules, in a more formal structure with a meeting, companies typically have a charter or a terms of reference that sets out the mandate of the committee, or the meeting. And it really helps to just put down a couple of ground rules that can form the basis of a meeting and how it can operate. This, the charter can typically include things like the purpose of the meeting, the membership, if that is at all relevant in the case of your meetings, quorum requirements, and this typically looks at, who would be the decision makers in the meeting and how many people you actually need in the meeting before decisions can be taken. And then it also includes just the duties and responsibilities of a committee or a meeting, and it just really helps in, as I said, setting the ground rules and everyone being on the same page with regards to what the purpose of the meeting and what needs to be extracted from it. So in the meeting itself, there are a couple of things that I just want to highlight on how you can really make sure that you have a smooth, effective meeting. So it's always a good idea to start off with a recap of what happened in the previous meetings. What were some of the discussions? Companies and committees, they typically start off their meetings with a review of the previous set of minutes, and then they also provide an opportunity for people to provide feedback with regards to the action items. It just really sets the scene for the meeting going forward. Time management in the meeting is so critical, and it is so important to make sure that you start and end on time. If you start your meeting the minute it has been scheduled, it just really sends a message to your participants that late coming will not be tolerated, and it also just really, sets a precedent for punctuality. A lot of companies do, they get it right to really start on time, but the problem sometimes happens with the end time. The meeting is scheduled for an hour, but you don't get through all the discussion topics on the agenda, and then the meeting just carries on until everything has been discussed. It's not always the most appropriate thing to do it this way. You also just need to respect your participants' time. People may have arranged something else to do, so it really puts people in a difficult position if the meeting runs over time. So and I think that also sometimes results in a less productive meeting. So consider the items on your agenda, and as I said earlier, make sure that you've prioritized your important items, and then defer the items that hasn't been discussed to the next meeting. The next thing I want to chat about is the fact that you need to choose your chairman wisely. So this is very important because I think we've all been in meetings, and there's always that one person who really likes to tell a story, and you know the conversation quickly goes off topic, and this is sometimes really where a meeting can get stuck and get dragged on for longer than it needs be. So you really need to have someone, a chairman or a leader of the meeting, that can really focus the meeting and bring discussions back onto topic when it goes astray. The chairman should really be someone with a strong personality, but that also are sensitive to the feelings of the participants, and can really bring things back on track, and dominate, focus the meeting, but not be over dominating. So it's really important to choose a chairman wisely. It's and it's not an easy task. It's not just the chairman just follows the agenda. It really needs to be someone with a strong personality that can keep your discussions on topic, and that can also wrap up a discussion when it's appropriate. So now that we've looked at the meeting management side, I really want to touch on the administration side of a meeting, and this is just as important in really making sure that you can run a good and effective meeting. And here we'll look at the minutes and some tips and techniques on how to write some good minutes, the attendance registers, and also the action lists. So the key to good minute writing is really the ability to grasp what is said in a meeting and to record the essence of the meeting. And it really needs to be done in such a way that it can be easily understood by someone who hasn't actually been in the meeting itself. The minutes is an important and a necessary task, and I'm sure that the minutes are probably the last thing that anyone wants to do in the meeting, but it is an important and it's a necessary task, especially if you want to take the decisions and the action items that has been taken at the meeting and really carry that forward and make sure that you can get some momentum going. Some companies like to delegate the function. It can be outsourced to a third party in its entirety, or it can be done in-house, so not actually by someone who is participating in the meeting. So it's someone who is not expected to participate in the meeting, and that is solely in the meeting to take the minutes, and that would leave the way open for participants to really focus and participate fully in the meeting, and not having to worry about jotting down actions and decisions that has been taken. It is important to ensure that your minute taker has the skills and the ability to take the minutes. It is actually a skill and an art to take the minutes. Not everyone can really separate the words from the message and know what are the important things to minute. So it's really, they need to have an understanding of the business and also the matters to be discussed at the meeting, and that is sometimes not an easy task, because meeting participants can use jargon that is not easily understandable by everyone. So you need to really think about who you get to take the minutes, and it needs to be someone that also understands what is being discussed. Your minute taker should also be able to ensure and guarantee confidentiality, because these meetings, they do typically also, they can relate to confidential matters, and you need to be able to trust your minute taker that these things won't be repeated after the meeting. What companies also typically do is, if they do outsource the minutes to an external party, they do put confidentiality agreements in place with those minute takers. So as I said, minutes are not a recording of what was said, but it is a recording of what was discussed. So therefore, it is critically important for the minute taker to listen to the message and not the actual words that are spoken. So the minutes are not just a word-for-word recording of what was said, but it is a summary of the discussions that have taken place. So the easiest way to minute an item is to take note of what was tabled for discussion. Was it a presentation? What was the title of the presentation? Is it a memo? Who submitted this memo to the meeting for discussion? Also list all the points that was raised in discussion. So, any concerns that had been highlighted by some of the meeting participants, and then make sure that you summarize the issue. Short and succinct once again, not more, don't minute more than is what is absolutely necessary. And then always make sure that you capture the decision and any action that was decided that needs to be done. So the minute taker should really think every single point. Have I summarized the issue? Have I captured the decision and the action to be taken? So minutes can be long and they can be detailed, or they can be short and to the point. And this would really depend on the type of minutes that you, the type of meeting that you would be minuting. Some more, regulatory type of discussions, they tend to be a little bit longer and more detailed. I think the key here is to keep your minutes as short as it can possibly be. The structure of the minutes should align with the topics set out in your agenda. So if your agenda is numbered 1 to 10, your minutes should typically also be numbered 1 to 10, exactly corresponding to your agenda. And just a reminder that minutes should be recorded in past tense. So it would typically be, he said, or the following matters were discussed, because these minutes would obviously be read after the meeting has actually taken place, so they need to be recorded in past tense. Okay, always make sure that your minutes are precise. Don't use terms like, we'll do it next week, or, or we had a meeting the previous week. Make sure that you use dates so that it's clear and to avoid confusion. Also avoid words like a few or some where it is possible. And then another thing I just wanted to mention is also avoid using any emotional words like he was very upset. Those type of words, they don't fit into minutes at all. It is important to consider what is appropriate for disclosure and what should remain confidential. As I mentioned earlier, some meetings do touch on confidential matters, and the minute taker should really be able to distinguish between what is appropriate to include in the minutes and what should rather be left out. Throughout your minutes, it's important to keep your font size and numbering consistent, and as well as the style and the formatting. What you can actually do is you can highlight things like decisions and action items with a different font or a different, you can underline it, or you can even make it a different color to make sure that those critical matters stand out in your minutes. So while minutes are typically recorded in a written format, it can actually also be recorded, on a phone or a dictaphone, and this is just usually to facilitate the minute-taking process. Good practice is to ensure that once the minutes are approved and signed off by the chairman, that the recording is destroyed and that the minutes then remain as the only recording of what was discussed and decided at the meeting itself. It's important to send out your minutes in a timely manner. This is just sometimes comes back to who you get to distribute your minutes. If you get someone whose work it's not actually to do minutes, it can sometimes take a long time for these minutes to be produced and sent out to meeting participants. But good practice is to really get those minutes out within 7 to 10 working days of the meeting actually taking place, so that those, the discussions are still fresh in the minds of the participants, and that you can, also get the momentum going with regards to, setting a good precedent for when minutes are distributed. So the minutes are typically tabled at the next meeting for the meeting participants to review them and to approve those minutes. The chairman typically signs them off, and then these minutes should be filed. Some companies like to file them in a hard copy in a minute book. But you can also just file them electronically. Just make sure that they are filed together with the meeting agenda, as well as the presentations and the meeting material, so that when your minutes do refer to these reading material, those are also nearby and handy. So if we look at the minute structure, it should typically set out at a minimum the date and the venue of the meeting. Now, if your meeting is done electronically via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, that would be stated in your meeting minutes, so that people also, so it's clear the platform that was used. It should also set out the attendees at the meeting. So in your minutes, you need to include your attendance register, and that would typically also state whether the person in your meeting is, are they attending as a director, are they a member of a committee, or are they merely invited to listen to the discussions? Those type of things need to be clear in your minutes. Also record who has sent their apologies and who the chairperson of the meeting was. It's important to also include the start and end time of your meeting, and ensure that you leave space for the minutes to be signed by the chairman. So this is just, just a template of what your minutes typically can look like. So, as I said, clearly articulate the type of meeting that you are having, and the platform that you are using, including your date and time that the meeting starts. As mentioned, also include who is in attendance at the meeting and the capacity that they are attending the meeting in. You will also see here from the template that I've put on here that I do have a column for actions on the right-hand side, and it's it just helps to, next to, if when you write the action in your minutes, in the action column, put the name of the person that is responsible for completing this action. Then, if you look at the minutes at a glance, you can quickly pick up where your action items are and who is responsible for completing those actions. Okay, and then the minutes can further include, things like what was accepted by people in the meeting, the, acceptance of the previous minutes, as I mentioned, what was approved, did people agree on things, was there any disagreements? Always make sure that you include each and every decision and action that was decided on, and then also, include who was your presenters, the name of your presentations and reports, as I mentioned earlier, and also include the date of the next meeting to ensure that all meeting participants are on the same page, and that they can also diarize those dates accordingly. If we look at the attendance register, as I mentioned earlier, very important to ensure that that is included in your minutes, but also companies do like to distribute a separate attendance register, especially for meetings that are held in person. And these are typically distributed early on in the meeting, so that, so your participants can confirm their attendance and also the capacity in which they are attending the meeting. After the meeting, make sure that your attendance register are filed together with your minutes and your agenda as a record and proof of the participation in the meeting. Once again, just a template of typically what an attendance register could look like. As I said, your participants can confirm their names and the capacity that they are attending the meeting. It's all from an action list perspective. Always prepare a separate action list once you have completed your meetings. As I mentioned earlier, in your minutes itself, you do track the actions there, but Always keep a separate action list as well, where you can extract just the actions from a meeting so that those can be tabled at the next meeting for easy feedback and a progress report. Once again, I've just included here for you, what the template of an action item could look like, and it will typically just have a short description of what the action is, who the person responsible is, and then also provide a column for feedback so that whoever is responsible for the action can give some feedback on the progress made with regards to your actions. So always review and seek feedback on the action list during the meeting. So the chairman should really give a chance for the action list to be reviewed and for people to provide feedback at the meeting. It is typically normal for actions to stand over to a next meeting to be carried forward, but it just gives an opportunity for everyone in the meeting to have a look at the action. Does the person responsible for the action need some guidance? And it's important to keep an action on the action list for as long as it remains open, not just for the next meeting. If you carry forward an action to the next meeting, keep that action on the action item list until it has been closed and resolved. It's not considered micromanagement to review the action list at every single meeting. If you want anything to happen these days, you really need to follow up. It is perfectly good practice for these type of things to be discussed at every single meeting, so that a decision can be made on whether it can be closed or needs to be carried forward. So that is me in a nutshell, just chatting about effective meeting management and the administration side. Yes, I think that if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Anri, thank you so much. Wow, that was a lot of information, but it was absolutely fascinating. I think it really showed the importance of keeping good minutes, and really the information that you gave, the fact that it's not the personal view of things, it's just getting that information down in the correct way, making sure that it's quickly sent out to all of your members. And it was really, really interesting. I know that I've learned a lot from it. So thank you. And
You're
I just
welcome.
wanted to know how do secretaries of boards, things like that, usually get chosen? Do people apply for that? Do they put their name forward? A lot of our support groups are quite small, so they don't necessarily have a secretary. So maybe it's just the person running the support group who's kind of trying to manage everything. What would you say in that case? Do they need to bring someone else on board to help with the admin side of things?
I think it definitely depends on the skills that you have available. Is there someone in the support group that are willing and able to assist you with with those kind of minutes? Do they also have the time to do the minutes? I think a lot of companies feel like they have someone who is perhaps willing and able, but they just don't have the time to to get the minutes done. So I think it definitely depends on on all of those factors, the decision on whether you need to get someone external in to assist you with those kind of things.
And is that something that you offer as well within your business?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we do, we have a lot of clients, and we do typically assist them with whatever it is that they need. Some people really need assistance with setting the agenda, getting the meeting, collating the meeting packs, making sure that the calendar invites are sent out, and just managing it from that side. Some of our clients, they literally just need us to come in and take the minutes, and that is all we do. We receive all the information and the agenda from the client itself, and we just do the minutes. So so we tailor make our service depending on what it is that our clients need.
So it's really just the importance of making sure that your administration is strong. So from the agenda to the minutes to sending it out afterwards, to ensuring that everyone has signed the attendance register, all of that, you need to be admin strong to ensure that you're on top of all of that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, your admin really needs to be strong, and also, as I said, it also you need to be able to also grasp what it is that the person or the meeting is talking about, and that's also why sometimes, especially when you use an external person, is to have the same person join every meeting, because they do start to get a feel of what of the discussions, what is important to minutes, and what is not important to minutes, and getting, as I said, getting the minutes out in good time is so important, because what we do see with some of the clients that we take on that really felt that they need someone to come in, is they have, let's say, meetings 4 times a year. So those meetings are 3 months, apart from each other. And then they will receive the minutes of the previous meeting a week before the next meeting is due to start. And by that time, so much has happened. There's actually no need to review the minutes, because no one can actually remember what was, what was said, let alone, what was asked to be done in terms of actions and that kind of thing. So, so it is important that you get those minutes out quickly, so that the guys can review it while they still can remember what was actually discussed. And then also, obviously, those minutes form the basis of the actions that needs to be done before the next meeting, so, and people can then also follow up on those actions throughout the course of the 3 months, or whatever the time period is that is between your meetings, so that when you do come to the next meeting, you can actually see progress made.
Absolutely. And the thing that I also found so interesting was when you said you don't write down everything that was said. If someone's doing a presentation, you write down the name of the presentation and link it there. So it's not you trying to take all the information while people are talking and frantically write it all out when it's there on a presentation that you can kind of pull from afterwards. You don't have to be able to do shorthand, or you're not going to spend hours re-listening to the recording to try and make sure that you are capturing every single word that has been spoken.
No. Yes, sorry, and that's also why it is so important for you to actually keep the minutes together with the presentations. It's important for the minutes to be read together with the presentations, because the minutes aren't there to rewrite what was already kind of written in the presentation itself. So you can actually just refer to the presentation and say, the meeting participants took note of this presentation, or Anri took the guys through this presentation, and that's it. And then only minute what was discussed. Was there any concerns raised? Were there any someone who said maybe the presentation needs to be enhanced? Or those are the type of things that will then be put in the minutes.
And also, if it then opens up another pathway of discussion. So if you're doing a presentation on this, and then someone goes, okay, now that I've seen that reminds me that we need to speak about that, then obviously you'll refer to that second conversation that's had as a result of that.
Absolutely, yes. And if whatever there needs to be discussed can't actually be discussed in the meeting there and then, those are then typically the things that will then go onto the action list, and then will be discussed at the next meeting.
And do you think it's important that these kind of meetings are held, like for our support groups? Some of them might not necessarily be a registered support group, but they are running as support for rare disease patients. They do have people that are sort of the class moms of the support groups. Are these meetings important to actually ensure that the support group can continue to grow and improve?
Yes, I think, I don't, I've unfortunately never been part of a support group like this, so I'm not 100% sure about what gets discussed. But I think that, as I said in the presentation, your minutes can be as short as it needs to be. It doesn't need to be, it can be very brief and succinct and to the point, and doesn't need to take hours to actually do. Make sure that you capture the most important things like actions and decisions. I think that taking minutes are still important to drive the action process, so to make sure that whatever is discussed and participant might say, listen, we really need to do this, and if it's not jotted down in the minutes and not put on the action item, people will not remember next time that is what was decided and that's what we wanted to do. So I think that meetings and minutes are important from that aspect, is to really drive the actions and make sure that that you can, that the good valuable feedback that was was discussed and tabled and brought to the meeting, that can actually then create some momentum going forward.
And absolutely, like you started your thing saying, we in meetings the whole time, and often we'll jump off one meeting into the next, and if you haven't written down your action items, then you're confused. Was it that one that I had to do something, and I know, was it the first meeting I was in, or was it the second one? What exactly was I having to do? Because your mind now is going the whole time. I think working from home, we don't really have a shutdown button anymore.
Yeah.
Because our computers are there, people are able to reach us the whole time, and the meetings just roll. So absolutely, I love the idea of having an action list, and just, even if it's your own personal action list from every meeting with what you need to action per meeting and move forward.
Yes, and it's just so, it's just such a good way to start the next meeting, to look at what was, what was kind of discussed at the previous meeting, what were, what with some of the things that we said needed to be done. It just sets the scene for going forward. Otherwise, you sometimes just start off fresh and reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Anri, it has been such an honor to have you here, and I learned so much from your presentation. I know that I'm definitely going to watch it back, because there was a lot of information, but I think it was so necessary for all of us here. I see that we don't have any other questions that have come up, but if anyone wants to get hold of you and wants to employ your services or assistance, how can they get hold of you?
So they are welcome to, send me an email or even, get in touch with me on the phone. I'm easy. I did put my details on right at the end of the meeting of a presentation, but if they need to get in touch with me, they can get my details from you, I guess, as well. And feel free to get in touch with me. And even if it's just having a couple of questions to get you on the right path, welcome to give me a shout.
Anri, thank you so much. You are an absolute wealth of knowledge. You are such a blessing, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to help all of us here at RARE. Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, everyone, have a great evening, and we'll chat again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.